yarn workers, I almost spaced Face to Face Friday. You know, nothing like not showing up for the second time you said you would do this thing. So the little poll said it seemed like 3 o'clock was the best time for folks. So it's not that I was another time. I think I'm going to try to do this at 3 o'clock. But I was so focused today on trying to get to the post office and get all your books out the door. So I have been writing and signing and packing and labeling. So check your inbox because if your book went out, you should get a shipping notification to the email address that you put in when you made your order. So thank you. I'm so excited to get them into your hands. For this week, for Weaving Week, I thought I'd look at the questions. The most common question I got was around, still around threading. And what happens is if you're doing the direct method and it's a paired system and you did all your threading, putting your loop on the peg, you're going to end up with an odd end. So you think, well, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You actually threaded 70 instead of 169 or 170 instead of 169. Now, there's nothing wrong with throwing that end off the back. And often when I'm working in the direct method, rather than trying to think about getting that number right, that's what I do. An alternative to that, as we talked about in the color work class, is the cut and wrap method. So what that looks like is on that last end, if you want just one end in there, you would take that loop down to the peg, but cut it off with plenty of length left so you can wrap it around the peg itself. So that is an option. Throwing it off is also an option. Now, here's a caveat, and I will talk about this in the finishing week. You're going to see the end of my weaving where it sort of pops over the beam and you see sort of all that ugliness from the crossing with the direct method. If you throw something off the back end, say you just decide you have an extra thread and you throw it away, you get to the back end, and then all of a sudden a warp end goes completely slack and it's gone loose. That's because that end you threw off the back is paired to another yarn, right? Because it goes around the rod and back through to another one. That's what forms the loop. So no biggie. You can just tie it back on. And what I do is take a little bit of the slack off, tie it on, approximating the tension, not trying to get it exactly, and then cranking the tension off. And it may be a little tighter or a little looser than your other warp ends. But at that point, you'll be so far down the road, you just need to get probably a few more inches out and you should be fine. So also sometimes if you haven't tied on your first yarns right, they can slip. All kinds of weird things can happen when that apron rod pops over. Now in theory, and again, I'll mention this next week when the videos go up, if you did the direct warping method and you finished, you did the direct warping method and use my words, I'm so flustered that I almost forgot. So if you did the direct warping method, the loom waist is enough for the indirect. So you should have extra warp length. So it's not necessarily popping up over that apron rod, which is a good thing, which is what I usually recommend if you're using color work in the direct warping method, is to add on extra inches so that apron rod never really pops up and over and you get that sort of mess at the end. So that was the primary question that seemed to pop up this week. Let's see. I'm just gonna go through and look. Yeah, so I think that was the biggest theme. I hope your weaving is going well. I'm seeing some finished projects. We even saw someone who's ready to jump on again. I think that was Jean, and is already weaving a second pair of mats. I have my 2 trivets off the loom and working on finishing up. I just have 2 videos for you next week. So we're going to talk about finishing, and then we'll have show and tell week. These just fly by. I'm going to talk more about this at the end of the weave along, but for those who've been here a bit, the interface, Thinkific has this new update, and I'm not updating it in the middle of a weave along because that would be madness. But what's really cool about it, instead of our discussion section, which is sort of that one group chat and you have to scroll through them all, when I do the update, the questions will appear at each lesson. So if you have a question on a video, you can ask on that video, and then you can see other people's questions on that topic. So that is super cool, and I think will really help us out a lot. What I have to do before I switch over, though, is when I do that, I'm going to lose all the questions from the previous weave along. So I have to work on, I'm going to pull them all together as an FAQ and add them as a lesson. So that will, but I should be able to do that in plenty of time before we start weaving along. That will be the same for the classes. So I very much want to get those frequently asked questions before I switch over so I can archive them. And then the new system will just be intact. So I will definitely talk more about that later, but I was exploring that today, always trying to look at ways we can make things better. And other than that, that as well. Oh, for patrons. Now, this may not necessarily be true because if you're on seeing this, you're on Facebook, but not all patrons are on Facebook. So I am going to download these videos and add them to my YouTube channel on an unlisted section and put the link into the post for next week. So I added that as a tag. So if you go to Patreon and you look in the tags of the post, you'll see Face to Face Friday. And so I'm just going to upload them to YouTube so that they're there for everybody. So that's it. Simple. Sorry, I almost forgot. I'm going to check in on Fridays. Maybe Fridays isn't the best day. I don't know. But it seems like it gives us a chance to get through the weaving time. And we'll just see how this works for a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to skedaddle to the post office before they close and get your books in the mail. So happy weaving. I hope you have fun. I'll be around this weekend. Definitely checking in tomorrow to answer questions. So until next time, heddles up. Oh, and hey, Nancy. Hi, everybody. Hello. Who's there live? I know there's just a couple folks. Friday's a terrible time. I know. But we'll see you soon. Bye.